Hello and welcome to a bit of philosophy and D&D, but not, hopefully not boring philosophy. So, as you might perhaps know, my main gig is a philosophy professor, and then I play D&D for a super long time and write D&D stuff. And so I have a philosophy of fun, and part of it is don't steal turns in D&D. So most of us who play tabletop role-playing games, D&D being probably the best known, one of the most popular, we generally agree this should be fun. So if you ask people, hey, should we have fun when we play D&D? Pretty much everyone will say, yes, we should. But at the table, and of course away from the table, people are subject to what in the philosophy business and psychology business we call the false consensus effect. That's a cognitive bias that causes people to quote from psychology, it causes us to see our own behavioral choices and judgments as relatively common and appropriate to existing circumstances. Essentially, what this means is that, in my own case, I'll tend to think that what I like to do, since we're talking about fun, what I think of as being fun is something everyone else will probably agree with. And my view of what's fun at the table, that people will think of as being, I'll think of being appropriate. Like, not only, okay, what I like to do is fun, and this is totally appropriate at the table. Now, in the case of, D&D, that means that me and other players and other people, because of this cognitive bias, will tend to think that everyone agrees with our idea of fun, and doing that kind of stuff at the table, perfectly fine. And as you might suspect, this may not always be the case. For example, there are players who really enjoy role-playing, and so spending hours at the table in deep role-playing encounters, feeling like emotions and so forth, and getting really involved in it, they really enjoy that. And they might assume, because they enjoy it, that everyone else enjoys this as well. But, of course, fun, be it at the table or out away from the table, is something that is subjective. For example, yesterday I ran a 15K race. I like running, and it was fun. It could have been more fun if we were supposed to have rain on the course. About half the course is this red clay that turns into like mucky mud, and that's, for me, running in that is a lot of fun because apparently, as some of my friends say, I've definitely got something wrong with me. Now, football games, this is a Sunday when I'm recording this, and I assume there's lots of football games on television. I guess the season ends sometime in February or something. And as you might gather from my like kind of ignorance of the football stuff, if I was forced to watch a football game, that would not be fun. That'd be kind of like torture for me. Now, when it comes to like running the 15K, if I say that it's fun, what I should more accurately say is it's fun for me. And likewise, when I say that watching football is awful, I should say not that it's awful, but that it's, not fun for me. Now, not surprisingly, over the years, I've been told by people that I'm wrong about running, that running is not fun, and I'm wrong about football, because watching football is the greatest joy a human being can experience in reality, apparently. Sorry to be a bit sarcastic, but people have kind of expressed that view that there's something deeply wrong with me if I don't like watching the footing of the ball. So they're right and wrong. They're right in the sense that football is fun for them, running is not fun for them. And I'm right because running is fun for me, watching football not fun for me. This is all because the reason why we're like right and wrong, or maybe better to say that no one's right and no one's wrong, or perhaps even better that each person is right about themselves and wrong about, other people in this case. This is because fun is like food preferences. That is to say, pretty much entirely subjective. What is fun for you is fun for you, but probably not for everyone. What is tasty for you is, perhaps not tasty for everyone. So if you really like plantains, you like them. You just do. And if other people don't, they just don't. So in the case of fun and food preferences and taste, there's to be honest, there's really no right or wrong. There's only like and dislike. Now, some people may be thinking, hey, this is all, super obvious. Why have you mentioned this? Well, while this might seem obvious, it's worth mentioning that the false consensus effect I mentioned earlier means that while we probably do know, like if you ask people, hey, straight up, does everyone like the same foods as you? Does everyone enjoy what you do? A second's reflection, people say, well, I guess not. I've noticed other people don't like everything that I like, and there are some things that I don't like. And there's some foods I like, and some foods I know other people, don't like. And so if we're asked this, we probably know that this is true, but because of the false consensus effect, even though we know this, we still tend to assume, when we're actually doing stuff, that if we're playing D&D, that everyone at our table will tend to share our view about what we think is fun in the game. For example, if you're a player who likes minimal role-playing and maximum combat, you'll tend to assume that everyone else enjoys this too. And you'll probably wonder, if the other players sometimes they just won't stop talking to the other non-player characters when it is clearly time to be killing them. Not the other players, the NPCs. Now, because of this, we should remind ourselves that other people at the table might have different ideas of what is fun. And of course, different ideas at different times, because we enjoy things depending you may be in a murder hobo mood at the table one day, and then later later game be more willing to talk. So we should remind ourselves that the people at the table might have this different idea of what is fun, and we should make some effort to find out what that is. Now, it's worth mentioning that there can be, probably, unfortunately, we've all probably encountered this, where there are players who are actually selfish. But in some cases, a player can appear selfish, but they're really not selfish. They just honestly think everyone else is enjoying their way of playing, and they're not doing it because it's they're not thinking, it's all about me, I don't care about anyone else. They're thinking, wow, I'm having a lot of fun doing this. I'm sure everyone else is having a great time too. For example, some groups have players who really love to go off on solo role-playing encounters. They like to go off to talk to a particular NPC, or go off to try to bargain for magic items or something, and they go off on essentially these short solo adventures. Now, they probably really enjoy what they're doing. They're having a great time in that that solo encounter. But the other players may not be having a good time. I mean, the player doing this probably thinks, wow, the other players are getting a real treat. They're an audience to my incredible role playing, and perhaps the DM's incredible role playing as well. But it's also pretty likely that the other players are really bored, and they're, instead of being enthralled by one's witty and brilliant role playing, they're scrolling through memes, or they're on looking at things on TikTok, which was supposed to be ended today, but apparently is coming back. But the whole TikTok thing, it's going on as I record this video. So, and I'm not on TikTok, so I guess it doesn't matter to me, but of course for other people, as an example, it's fun for them. So it does matter to them. So because people have different conceptions of fun, it's a good idea, again, to check in with other people at the table and see, hey, are you having fun? Especially if it's taking a long time. So, I mean, if someone just runs off quickly, hey, I'm going to run off and talk to my, my friend at the tavern, and they do a quick, few minutes of role play, that's fine. But if someone goes off and is spending 20 or 30 minutes or longer, and they're the only one there, they run off by themselves to talk to an NPC, or go and, try to spend, 40 minutes bargaining for a magic item or something, it's a good idea to check in, a few minutes in, hey, is everyone, is this fun for everybody, or should we kind of speed this up? And as a DM, of course, you'd want to, be proactive about that, kind of look at your table, or if you're playing online, try to gauge, are the people having fun? Should I speed this up? Now, it seems reasonable to accept that players have a right to fun at the table. That when you're at the table, kind of like the right of pursuit of happiness. That in the United States we claim people, right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. John Locke made that life, liberty, when he did originally life, liberty, and property, but changed to happiness for various reasons. But let's assume that at the table, at least conventionally, you have a right to have fun. That's why you're there. You're going there, of your own free choice. And the expectation is that one of the rights you get at the table is the right to have fun. Now, if that's not the case, then the thing to do is, if for some reason the view of the other players is, no, you have no right to have fun, then probably find, if you can, another table. Now, that's the approach I take as a DM and also as a player, because I usually run games, but I do occasionally get a chance to play in them. And in that case, what I enjoy doing is making the game fun for the people, hopefully, and hopefully also, and of course that I also have fun in the game as well. Now, we should always remember that just like with other rights, other people have, assuming the right to have fun is a right, other people have the right to have fun as well. So it's not only I that have the right to have fun, we all have this right. And as with other rights, such as the right to free expression, this means that I should and must accept limits on my own right so other people can enjoy their right. And this often seems to be like a paradox that, for us to have, freedom for our rights, we have to accept limits, which seems like to be free, you must be restricted. But it's actually true because, here's the obvious example, take free expression. For me to be able to freely express myself, say talking, to use a silly example, that means other people shouldn't be able to run in here and just start screaming into the microphone to interfere with me. So when we have these clashes of rights, we have to consider, where should we set these limits? And again, it may seem like weird and paradoxical that freedom requires limits, but this is not like a 1984 thing. This is like a practical thing. And again, to use a very practical but kind of silly example, in order for me to be able to talk, that means other people need to, kind of limit themselves in terms of, say, screaming at me, because then I wouldn't be able to express myself. So getting back to the right to fun, for example, if I really enjoy combat, but I know other players in the group really enjoy role-playing encounters in which they talk to the monsters, even potential enemies, I should and do curb my murderous inclinations so that they won't have to rely on Speak with Dead to talk to the monsters that I've just murdered. And so this is clearly, like with all rights, a bit of a balancing act. You have to weigh your right to have fun against the rights of other people to have fun. That's if one is like an ethical person and willing to afford to others the rights one expects themselves. And of course, we can only really expect other people to respect our rights if we do that in return. Respect is a two-way street. Now, while, as I noted earlier, fun is a subjective thing, there are clearly things that are not fun for anyone. One example of this is being unable to act on your turn in the game. At most tables, players can spend minutes of time trying to sort out what they'll do in those seconds of combat. This might be because the situation is dire and complex. It's a clutch moment. You got to make the right decision, or maybe you have like a TPK if things go badly. Or it could be the case that the person doesn't really know their character very well. They haven't read up on their spells, or perhaps they were, looking at TikTok or watching football when it wasn't their turn, and they pop back in. They don't really know what's been happening, and so it can take them a while. Now, in some cases, when people are new to the game, this is perfectly reasonable. If it's a person, they just learned D&D, they're trying to run a character, figuring out what all that stuff does can be difficult. In combat, sorting what to do can take time. But if people are taking a long time, many minutes for their turn, that means if you lose your turn, then you're going to be waiting quite a while. If you have a pretty good sized group, it might be 15 or 20 minutes before you get a chance to do anything. And if you're taken out for multiple turns, you may just be doing as a player doing nothing for quite a while. Now, while it can be fun to observe, the combat or what's going on, many players tend to check out when they can't do this. Phones, smartphones, really, just like in all aspects of life, really enable people to check out, pretty quickly and check out pretty deeply. But even before that, I remember back in the day, if someone was like taken out in a fight, they may start looking through the rules or reading a book or something. So there always were ways to check out. The phone just makes it easier to do. Now, since I know this, in my role when I'm running the game, in my role as a dungeon master, I try to ensure that a player is always able to take their turn. One key part of this, and this takes us back to like the title of this, like Don't Steal Turns, involves me being very restrained when deciding to use, when I have a monster, to use abilities that can steal a player's turn or turns. Spells like Sleep, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, or Hideous Laughter, if you don't want to, if you're using the SRD, Whole Person, Hypnotic Pattern, Banish. Those can all take a player character out of the action for a while. And like Banish could be up to a minute, Hypnotic Pattern quite a while. In fact, you could take out like a whole party with Hypnotic Pattern. It can be potentially a very dangerous spell. If everyone in the party fails, you have to figure out, okay, now what do the monsters do? Now, abilities that do things like stun, paralyze, petrify, or control a PC, take away agency from them, can also steal a player's turn. And obviously enough, knocking a player character down to 0 or killing them, which is very hard to do in 5th edition, can steal a turn or many turns. So in judging to use these abilities, I make a quick estimate of how likely it is that the PC will be affected. Obvious things are like how good are their saving throws, do they roll on advantage against certain effects, etc. I also, of course, consider things that may be slightly less obvious, such as how likely it is that another player will do something to help them if they get that in that condition. Because things like many of these things that do take a player out potentially for a turn, they can be countered like Sleep. Can be countered by you taking an action to shake them. Hypnotic Pattern is countered by damage, and I've seen players do something like just smack another player, another player character, unarmed strike, inflict minimal damage, and it takes them out of Hypnotic Pattern. They had multiple attacks, so it was worth doing. And so you have to consider, will the party work together? Do they have the means of doing this? Are they able and willing to do this? So, for example, if you know that if the fighter in the party gets held, and that the party will actually try to do something to help them, then you can have the enemy cleric cast hold person, because if the fighter fails their save, that the party will do something. The obvious thing would be to focus fire on the cleric and try to break their concentration, or kill them, which definitely breaks their concentration. And as long as the party's going to have like fun with dealing with that, and in this example, like the fighter probably won't miss their turn because the rest of the party will deal with the cleric, then that can be fun. It presents a clear threat. The fighter, your fighter is up there, they're held, they're in danger, oh no, and you get a chance to work together as a team to save them. And that can be fun. So as with running the game, like in general, it's always this balancing act between presenting a meaningful, interesting challenge that's also fun, and that's kind of difficult. You have to kind of gauge like how things can go like really wrong. And one reason why I tend to avoid I don't think I've ever used Hypnotic Pattern, because it could be, everyone rolls, everyone fails their save, and then what do? You have to figure out like, okay, what would the monsters do? Why wouldn't they just like, go over and just kill the party? But of course, this could also, you can make this into an interesting scenario where they get captured. If if the players, don't mind being captured like that. And there are some games, some modules that actually explicitly included that. Like back in the day, there was the Slaver series in which the parties like captured. There's like a fight, they just auto lose, and then they're taken off, into the slave pits. That's just how the adventure goes. And some players are fine with that. Some hate that. So if you know the party can deal with things, abilities that can steal turns, then you can work them in without worrying so much that you'll be stealing someone's turn and killing their fun. But if the party, can't counter them, or the players like won't, they'll just, if the fighter gets held, the rest of the players might just kind of laugh at them and go off and do their own things. If that happens, your table probably has other problems, but you wouldn't want to do that because it's going to ruin the person playing the fighter, going to ruin their fun. They'll just be held without being able to take their turn. So, but if the party can handle them, yeah, include them. Can be fun. If the party can't or won't, then best not to include them, because the point is having fun. And if someone's not playing, they're probably not having fun. So that's a quick take on philosophy of fun, and why generally as a DM, you always want to think carefully about using monster abilities and spells that can take away or steal a player's turn. Generally, try to avoid that, unless you know, again, that the players would enjoy, perhaps, limited times, enjoy having to deal with such a potential danger to the party. So stay safe, and I'll see you in the future, hopefully.